Hello, hello. Welcome back to the show. I'm your host, Nicole Holland, and today I'm very excited for our guest. After practicing business, tax, and securities law for over 12 years, Roland Frasier is now an active investor who drives growth and scale in his portfolio companies. He's a co-founder and or principal of three current Inc. magazine fastest growing companies, five. Well, I need a new I need an updated bio. He he's the co-founder and our principal of five current Inc. magazine fastest growing companies and has founded, scaled, or sold 24 different 7 to 9 figure businesses ranging from consumer products to industrial machine manufacturing companies with adjusted sales ranging from $3 million to $337 million. Roland's currently growing digitalmarketer.com, rivalbrands.com, and platter.com while advising over 150 other companies on digitally centric customer acquisition, activation, referral, retention, and revenue strategies and plan implementation. And it's a pleasure to welcome him here to the show. How's it going, Roland?
It's going fantastic. How are you?
Super. And we've been chatting a little bit beforehand. It's been awesome getting to know you a bit and hearing some of the really exciting things you've got going on. Before we jump into some of the more current things, I'm curious, with quite the resume and all of your business endeavors, what aspect of what you do really lights you up the most?
Gosh, I like the whole thing. I like the people. I like the deals. I like negotiating. I like the game. I just like the whole game of it. I tell people all the time, I would go get a job and work at another job to be able to do this stuff for free. It's just, to me, so much fun to build value and get to work with so many cool people.
And how did this emerge? Like, did you always have this idea and this plan and this vision that you would be here today? Or, I mean, working in law for quite some time, how did you transition out of that and into what you're doing today?
It's a great question. I've just always been curious, so I like to learn, and I can't help but think about ways to fix things, improve things, do new things. And so I just had, when I was practicing law, I mean, I've been business oriented all my life. So from about 16, pretty significant, and haven't ever worked for anyone after that. So for me, when I was practicing law, people would come, and I had all these ridiculously cool entrepreneurs, and they were making money in all these interesting ways, but I would keep seeing ways that they could improve their business and do things better. And so one day, I just, early on in that career, I said to somebody, I said, listen, you can pay me legal fees, but I think that you could do a few things and really grow your business, and I would be interested in helping you do those things and just splitting the profits of the increase in earnings over this time. And he said yes. And 9 months later, we split $1.8 million, and we each got $900,000 extra dollars. And I've always said every extra $900,000 helps. So even US dollars. So that it's just one thing led to another. And I can't keep my mouth shut if I see an opportunity. That's it, I guess, basically.
Nice. So you just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat.
Yep, absolutely.
So what were you doing at 16, if you don't mind me asking?
At 16 as a job, you mean? At
You said
16?
that's
Yep.
an
I worked.
entrepreneurial?
Well, yes. So I left my job at Golden Skate World as a skate clerk, where I was fixing roller skates and helping people do those kinds of things.
I
And
was a guard. I was a
and I
guard at the skating rink, yeah.
were you at the
Yeah.
skating rink? Yes. All right. Skating rink workers
Roller
unite.
skating, right?
Yeah, roller skating. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
None of that sissy ice skating stuff. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I was basically working there, and I just got in. I read a book that my father gave me by a real estate author named Robert Allen, who now lives right down the street from me, interestingly enough. And it was called Nothing Down: How to Buy Real Estate for No Money Down. And I just fell in love with it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's the coolest thing ever. And that ended up, I couldn't take the real estate salesperson exam until I was 18. So I just kind of did that for a couple of years. And then when I was 18, I was able to take the real estate exam, and I never looked back. And just each thing built on another thing when I saw a new opportunity, which is really cool, because I see with most of my friends who are successful entrepreneurs, they're never complacent. So I won't say they're never satisfied, although that's probably true also, but they're never complacent, and they're always looking to up level. And so that I am the same thing, not because I'm unhappy, maybe a little because you get bored each time you have a new level of success, but it's just being curious about where can I go next? How can I reach more people? How can I have more impact? How can I serve my audience better? That kind of stuff, right?
Awesome. It's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. It's like, okay, well, I figured that one out. So now let's get the next bigger and, more pieces one, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was really cool. I was talking to JJ Virgin not long ago, and she said with the New York Times bestseller list, she's like, well, first I wanted to write a New York Times bestseller, and then I wanted to get in the top 10, and then I wanted to be number one, and then I wanted to have two number one. It's like, it's just not, and it's not a arrogant thing. It's just a game you play with yourself to beat your best, right? How do you keep bettering your best?
Yeah, definitely the high achiever mindset, I guess. So one way that you are now serving people is with your podcast that you just launched in November called Business Lunch. Can you
Mhm.
tell me about it? Like, what was your inspiration for it? And what's your intention for the value that listeners are going to take away from it?
Sure. Yeah. So the inspiration for it came from about a year and a couple months ago. I was having breakfast with with one of my business partners and a couple of friends, and we talked about some really interesting stuff. And so I just said, I would wonder if you guys would mind if I would video some of the takeaways, because I made a couple of notes. So I shot, I think, 4 videos, and I posted them up to Facebook, and the 3 people that saw them seemed like they liked them. And I just was like, okay, well, I've been looking for a way to produce content that wasn't a pain, that I didn't have to really like work hard for. And so I was like, well, I have meetings with lots of interesting people. I'll start videoing the meetings. And so I did that. And then some of my friends got in touch with me and said, you're an idiot. You need to be doing a podcast. Nobody is people that are present on Facebook at the right moment, that one period of one moment of one day might see that, and the rest is gone forever. So, and you can't find anything on Facebook if you go back, past a certain number of posts. So they said you should do a podcast. And so it took me about this long, took about 6 months, because I wanted to go through Digital Marketers, one of the companies that I own, and I wanted to go through our system to do the promos and everything. So we had another podcast for Digital Marketer called Digital Marketer we wanted to launch first. So it took a little bit longer than I wanted, but it gave me the chance to interview about, I think we have about 20 interviews that we've done. And it's really awesome just getting to know people and how they think. So my premise is not what are the hacks and tactics that will, how do you click this box to run a Facebook ad or pixel an audience? It's more, how do the people who have achieved a high level of success think as they go about that process, and what's the evolution of their thought doing it? And so I really like talking with people and finding out consistently they don't care how many people are listening. And one of my neighbors and good friends, Frank Kern, is doing a thing right now on Facebook, and he'll have like 100 people that watch. 100, and that's like, for him, that's a very, very small audience, but it's a new thing, and he's not, well, this is stupid because there's only 100 people. And when Todd Herman was talking to four people at a sports team that were kids, and everybody else got up and walked out, it's like over and over and over, I'm going to deliver my message. I'm going to learn this new channel, and I'm going to go forward. And so I love talking to lots of people and seeing the commonalities in how they think and how their careers have evolved. And over again, it's curious, not afraid to fail, always moving forward, taking action, and don't care how small the audience that I'm impacting is, as long as I'm impacting.
I love it. And yeah, gosh, there was so much in that I want to pull apart. I'm just trying
You
to think.
can stop me and tell me to shut up anytime, by the way.
No, not at all. It was fantastic. So one thing, for a lot of people, you know, and it's so great to be a fly on the wall, and that's something that I've experienced many times. I know, like, people say, "You have purple hair. How are you an introvert?" I am. I'm an introvert, and when I'm with people that I know, um, you know, I'm very outgoing. It's not that I'm antisocial. It's that I need a lot of recovery time when I people, and
Mm-hmm.
but so sometimes I'll be at a dinner, I'll organize a lot of dinners, and I just sit back and listen and watch people interact and listen to the conversations, and I just find it so fascinating. Um, and as I've grown over the years in my own professional and personal development as an entrepreneur, I've gotten to not only interview hundreds of successful entrepreneurs through the podcast, but also be in the presence at events and dinners and things like that. And I love what you're doing, taking those takeaways. And it's, I think, for the people who really get it, they're going to be studying these takeaways and these interviews, and they're going to be really listening to the things beyond what the words are. Like you said, the way, the thinking process, the way people, as they up level and up level and up level and get to higher degrees of success, it's, things change and shift, and it's very subtle. um, and I think that that's really cool to be able to put that out there and present it, so thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. It's really exciting, and I think that it's it also is there. There's no script or questions that I've written down or anything like that. Much like we're doing here, which I think is so much more natural. But it also hopefully shows people that, like, all of my conversations with these people when we're hanging out, they're not about, so what's the new tactic, so how do I do that thing. It's not that at all. It's much more high level than that. And I think that we have a tendency, especially if you're doing anything online, to get kind of caught up in the tactical. I love tactics, but that's not really what moves the needle big time in the business, right? There's not a tactic that takes you from talking to a room full of high school hockey players to working with LeBron James, right? It's there's not, well, how do you do that? How do you do that is you think, you evolve, you're curious, you perfect your craft, and you build your relationships, because relationships, right? That's everything. And that doesn't happen sitting behind a computer. It happens getting out into the world. So I'm also, by the way, introvert. I do not like to go out into big, and you put me in a room full of people, I'm definitely on the wall back, kind of just observing. But gosh, it's you've got to have connections with people to make big strides in your career and your business.
And I think it's the depth of those connections and the depth of the relationships and providing value without asking for anything. I think
Mhm.
people, you know, this term networking, it's like, it's a tough one to, because it depends on where you're at in your
Mhm.
journey, what
Mhm.
networking means. And I think oftentimes people mistake, um, kind of a cheesy, phony, false self event where they go and collect cards, give out cards, give a little elevator pitch. That's not networking.
No.
That's what I think most people know to be networking. But when you really want to develop relationships, and I think that when that kind of networking, it's not taught that it's about relationships. It's taught about just meet as many people as you can.
Yep. You're right.
That's not what moves the needle forward.
You're right.
It,
Exactly.
it's giving value. And again, it's in my experience and what I've seen, it's you don't ask for anything back. And
Right.
like I teach about podcast guesting, and people, it drives me nuts where there's gurus out there saying you just got to get everywhere, just get on all the shows, deliver your message, and that's all that matters. Whereas I say absolutely not. You don't even get on a show until you know that you want to spend time with that host, that you
Yep.
know that the audience that they have is the audience you want to speak with, and you find ways to develop rapport, relationship, and give value to the host. And oftentimes you don't even have to ask them if you can be on their show, because they will logically, if it's a right fit, say, hey, you should come on my show. And it
Right.
happens all the time, but people don't want to, I think a lot of people don't want to take the time to build that relationship and to understand what motivates the other party and how they can support them at no skin off their back.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's my mantra is the same that you just said. It's do good things for other people with no expectation of anything in return, and it just comes back 100-fold. It really does.
I love it.
Mhm.
Okay, so can we talk a little bit about TNC, traffic and conversion? This is
Absolutely.
very big and well known and well respected in the industry. And um, you've got your annual event in San Diego coming up in just a few weeks. What's the exact date of?
February 25th, 26th, and 27th, 2019.
So you got 20 days before it starts if you're listening to this on the day of release. And for folks who are not familiar with traffic and conversion, can you give us a little bit of information about, first of all, what it is? Second of all, why it is, how it came to be, and also maybe talk about the future of, or what we can expect um, in 20 days.
Sure. So what it is the largest gathering of digital marketers in North America. We'll have about between 6,000 and 7,000 people there this year, which is super fun for us. And we have sold out every year because you generally have to book these things. When you get over about a couple thousand people, you're generally booking a year, 2 years, and then when you get past 3 or 4,000, 3 years in advance. So you're guessing how many people you will have a few years down the road. I like your little friend there. and uh, so what it is we get together and it started as the digital marketer team sharing all of the best strategies and tactics and techniques for online marketing, and it has evolved from a single stage and I think a few hundred people to now 5 stages. We take over entire hotel. We'll be in the convention center in San Diego starting in 2020. And we just bring in the brightest and the best in every single field. And the cool thing that's different about this event from, I think, any other event, and I go to lots of events, and I'm sure you do too, is that ours is you need to say, we want our audience to take away, here is a great result, here is the proof that it happened, and here's step by step how you can achieve that same result. And that's, to me, the magic is there's no one is allowed to come there and just say, well, I think if you did this it'd be cool, or report the news of digital marketing. It's, you have to have done something, you've got to show that it's true, and you've got to show people how they can do it too. So I think answers all of those questions, right? Except
Yeah,
maybe the
just
where it's
about.
going.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, I was there this year, or sorry, we're recording in 2018. So I was there in 2018. And in fact, I wasn't there for traffic and conversion. I just happened to be in town at that time.
Hmm.
And I went to see a friend of mine, and it was like, then I saw all kinds of friends of mine and people who are top of their game in the hallways. And they were talking about the power of the different sessions and how they were so upset because they wanted to get into so-and-so session, but it was standing room only to a point where then they closed the door and you couldn't even get in.
Mhm.
Um, it's very, from what I understand, very high level and very actionable, to where people were saying, I got this thing and now I'm going to go back. I've already called my team. We're implementing it on our next launch, et cetera, et cetera. So,
I'm so
uh,
happy to hear that, because the fact that people do things while they're there is awesome. That we couldn't ask for a better result or success story from our folks than that, right? It's they're
yeah,
literally they're impacted while they're there. That's great. And that's the challenge, that standing room only thing. We just only have so much room, and you can't fit everybody into every ballroom. And so moving to the convention center in 2020 should solve that. But it's really cool, and it's the fire marshal. It's not us. The fire marshal literally says, "I am going to throw you out. I'm going to shut the whole thing down if you let too many people in." And they sit there with counters and count the people that go in the door, which is good, because if there was a fire, you don't want people to. It's bad if people get killed at your event. So
I
we're
think
trying to
so.
avoid that at all costs.
Yeah, probably wouldn't be a good
Mm-mm.
thing.
Not good for the next year. Definitely not.
Definitely not. And I actually, when I flew into San Diego, I happened to run into somebody in the mastermind I was in at the time. And, and I was like, oh, hi. And he was in, I can't even remember the name of it. I'm sorry. But he was in your special program, it's like it's certified partners or something.
Oh yeah, certified partners. Sure.
Yeah, so he got to go to some other special events that were just for this group, for this, I believe it's a membership or
Yes.
mastermind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we
And
have a mastermind called War Room, and then we have a certified partners, which is really just the ability to resell digital marketers programs and then private label them for your customers if you're an agency.
copy. Yeah. So he runs an agency, and we wound up after that, I think it was the next day or something, having lunch. Maybe it was 2 days later, and he was just raving about the content and the quality and all of that. So,
Good.
um, very, very exciting. And so that's coming up in just a couple of weeks, and tickets are maybe still available. At the time we're recording, tickets are available, but you never know, because we're getting really close. So if people want to get tickets, what should they do?
They should go to trafficandconversionsummit.com, all spelled out. And since they're listening here, we can give them a discount coupon. And since Digital Marketer is putting the show on, which we affectionately refer to as DM, the code is Carpe DM, not Carpe DIEM, but Carpe DM. So CARPEDM should get them a nice discount.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for that.
You are very welcome.
And the other part of the question was about the lineup. So you're working on it right now. I know you can't talk about everybody, but you've got some pretty heavy hitters already lined up for that. Can we talk about who some of the speakers are and who are
Yeah.
delivering content?
Yes. So in addition to the digital marketer team and the partners, we have Brendan Burchard, who's a ridiculously awesome marketer. He's a motivational personality, and high performance is kind of his specialty. But as a marketer, and he pushes all the buttons still in his organizations too. So he knows how to do everything and breaks things down amazingly well. We're doing he's keynoting, and we're doing a special day for influencers and influence marketing. So that's going to be really cool. We have Jay Shetty, who's got, I think at this point, 3 billion YouTube views, talking about how he got all of those views in 18 months, by the way. We have Rachel Hollis, who's she sold an event out, I think, of 3,400 people in 19 minutes. She's just super, super hot right now. Has, I think, 2 of the top 50 podcasts in the world right now, her and her husband, Dave. We've got Dean Graciosi, who's sold over $1 billion of products on TV and online, and he's got a really cool model that he's going to be breaking down. And JJ Virgin, Jeff Walker, who is the product launch founder, is going to be talking about what's going to be in 2019, the way to launch products, and it goes on and on and on. It's a super. Oh, the Harmon brothers that did Poopery and all these great viral videos online are coming in and breaking down how they do that. It's really exciting. I don't get to see all the sessions because of speaking and stuff. So I always go back and watch the recordings after, and it takes me, because there's 5 stages, it takes a long time, even at 2 or 3 times speed, to watch them. But gosh, I learned so much. I'm excited to have all the people. We get so much out of doing the event too, that we're talking about it, and our team is like, did you know you could do that? So it's really, really fun.
That is awesome. So another thing that we talked about that's maybe not really public yet, maybe it is public, maybe it's public for some people, I'm not really sure, but you said I could ask you about it, so I'm gonna. Um, so this is the first year that Traffic and Conversion Summit is not only going to be held in San Diego. What's going on here?
We partnered with a big company called Clarion that has, I think they have 250 different events all over the world, and they really specialize in expanding markets, especially internationally. And so we're now partnered with them. We still program the event and we still own the event and all that, but now they own it with us. And it's really exciting because their skills are allowing us to go into New York the 17th, 18th, and 19th of September. We'll be in New York in a hotel in Times Square. And then in 2020, we'll be expanding into Singapore and Amsterdam and possibly China. That may end up being 2021. But we have a very aggressive, we're going to end up with somewhere between 10 and 15 of these all over the world. And so it's very exciting to get to expand like that and affect more people and help more people be better digital marketers.
So awesome. And it just opens up the availability of attending your events and really getting that high level training um, in person, where you can also build relationships. It just opens it up to so many more people who otherwise wouldn't have access. So I am super excited to hear about that, especially in New York.
Yeah.
And, and we talked about relationships a bit, and I kind of want to go back to that.
Okay.
So for folks who maybe haven't concentrated on building relationships, maybe they've been introduced to the format I mentioned before, where you go to some kind of diner and everybody stands up and says what they do, and then everybody
Oh,
hands cards, and
horrible.
everybody's obligated to refer people that they know to those people. That's not the way we're talking about relationships. So for somebody who that's been their only experience with networking, who is getting it, who's listening and going, that makes so much sense. This didn't feel good to me, but it would feel great to me to connect with people I like and talk about things from a high level. Do you have any recommendations on how to get started with that without coming off as a crazy fan? Because I think there's a fine line. Like, we don't understand it if we haven't done it, and then you go through the process. I think some people are just natural connectors and natural relationship builders, but it doesn't necessarily come naturally for everyone. So sometimes when we think we're, introducing ourselves and we want to give first and all of that thing, it's like we are so much in our head that maybe it kind of like is repelling.
Yes, I think there are probably three things to think about. One is that it's not a good place to network if you are coming up as a fan of someone. It's not like if you've heard somebody speak that you really like and then you want to run up after and tell them they did a good job. They'll appreciate that, but that's not a time to network, because you can't possibly have a conversation that will allow you to learn anything about each other at that time. So it's really nice to have people come up. But from a networking standpoint, I think that the very first thing is you need to put yourself in an environment where there are people naturally connecting that you want to connect with. So rather than going to one of those events like you said, which sounds like a nightmare to me, right? And I'm sure to you too. It's figuring out how can you. There are so many masterminds and meetups and things like that that aren't quote unquote networking events. And I think you should do your networking not at networking events. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Because then you can have an authentic, legitimate conversation where you can find out about the person and see what you can do for them. So that to me is probably the biggest thing of all. And
Before you move to the next thing, I just want to highlight what you just said. See what you can do for them. I'm going to
yes.
take you off your train of thought here for a second because I want to ask you. I'm guessing that you get approached by people you don't know, somewhat frequently at least,
Mm-hmm.
with them asking about what they want you to do for them.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like right? Do you get people asking you for favors or things?
I do. Interestingly, I don't get it as much as I think a lot of people do, and I truly don't know why. Um, it might be because I'm always leading with what you said earlier. I'm always leading with, "Is there anything I can do to help you?" And I mean it. It's not a platitude. It is. I want to know, and if there is, I'm going to do it right away if I can. Like especially if it's connecting people, I'll say, "Hang on a minute. I'm going to text you together with them right now because if I don't, it's probably never going to happen, right?" And so yeah, so I don't get that a lot, but I do get it occasionally, and it is absolutely a huge turnoff, right? It's like, whoa, 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 I don't even know you. What do you
Who are
mean?
you?
Right? Yeah, yeah. So that's I
Just
think
wait.
that's a
Now that you're doing the podcast, they'll start rolling in.
well, I did have somebody. It was really funny. I just recently had somebody at an event that my company was putting on, and they kept texting me saying, "Are you going to come in? I want to talk to you. I want to talk to you." And then I got spammed by their marketing team, and I was like, I texted him back. I was like, "Dude, I just got on my private email a spam thing from you, and it's not even compliant. There's no unsubscribe or anything." And he's like, "Oh, I would never do that." And then I'm like, I sent him a screenshot of it, and then he was like, "Oh, well, my team was doing outreach." And I'm like, "Well, if you're to podcasters," and I said, "Well, if you're outreaching to podcasters in a way that's going to annoy them, what kind of what's the point? That seems like the opposite of what you want."
Welcome, Roland. Welcome.
That's funny.
Sorry. So I didn't mean to. I did mean to take you off topic just for a sec because I did want to just highlight that when you approach them, it's to when you want to get to know somebody, don't come from a place of what you want from them. Come from a place of authentically wanting to know them with no strings attached and seeing what you can do for them, how you can support them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we kind of talked about the other 2 points too. Is that's the first thing to me is the environment that you're in. Make it an environment where networking is even possible, right? Because it's not possible to just come up to somebody that you don't know and in a cold environment, and especially if they're doing something, right? There's no chance that you're going to have quality networking. So that's the first thing. The second thing is to think about what is it that you can do to help them, not what you can get, which we talked about. So you took me off actually directly into my second thing, right? So that's the thing is meet them in that right environment, and then think to listen to what they're saying first, because there'll probably be an interaction going on, and then think about how to approach them by saying, "Hey, I know that you were talking about this. I know somebody who I think can help you. I want to connect you." Or I actually have some experience with that, and there's a tool that'll do that, right? Whatever benefit that you can come with right off the bat, that's so powerful. And it's, as you said, it's unusual for a lot of people, right? That get hit up all the time. So I think right place, right offer, right, or right approach, and then follow up. I can't tell you how many people tell me that they want to do something for me and they never ever ever follow up. and then they'll reach back out and ask after that, almost like, oh, well, I have to offer something first and then I can follow up to do it. It's like, no, what if you just actually want to help? And then you actually do help. So follow through is the third part that will put you so far ahead of most people because so few people actually do it.
I love it. And I take your approach because honestly, it's not that I don't want to help anybody. It's it or everybody. It's that, well, there's two things there. On one hand, it's just like I have life too, and I'm busy too. And if I'm meeting somebody in the moment or I'm talking to somebody, I do this a lot with guests on my show, if we're chit chatting and there's something I can do to help or somebody I can connect them with or a tool or whatever, it's like, okay, let's do that now.
Right.
And because I won't follow up later
Yeah.
to do something for them. And it's
You
not
say, I
because
know I won't because I've seen me do
yeah,
it.
and it's not because I don't want to, it's because I'm busy. And so I feel like I want to help people. And if they want my help, they either will accept it then or they will follow up with me at a later date. But
Yep.
like I used to try to follow up with everybody I met, and that's just insanity.
Yeah, you can't.
So,
It's not possible. I do. One thing that I do that helps me a lot is probably once a week I will find an hour to go through my old texts, and I'll just scroll back through like the last 100 texts I've sent. Doesn't take much time, but I'll be like, oh, I forgot to follow up with this person, or somebody connected me to somebody, and it got lost in the whirlwind. So I find that to be really helpful too.
yeah, totally. And the other thing to mention, and I feel like it shouldn't need to be mentioned, but experience tells me it's probably better to mention it, is that when you're offering something of value, offer it as a gift. Don't let somebody who doesn't already know you and doesn't have rapport with you or trust you or whatever, don't tell them about what you do and your programs and that they can hire you. That's not a good look for a first or second meeting, I think. What are
or
your thoughts?
agree 100%. And the other thing that this is something that I do get hit with reasonably often. We don't promote for other people like a lot of folks do on the joint venture. Like, you promote and I'll pay you 50%. That's kind of a common thing. We don't do that because we generate most of our traffic from cold. We actually generate all of our traffic from cold traffic. So I will have people approach very frequently saying, I'd really like for you to make the offer to your list of this thing. And it's like, I'm all, number one, if you knew me, you'd know we don't do that. But number two, why? Why would I do that? Like, it that's a really bad approach. Hey, I'm going to let you sell my product. Aren't you lucky? So,
Yes, that's one. And you know what? Now we're going down this rabbit hole. So I've got another one that comes up from time to time. I'd love your thoughts on where where you have rapport with somebody. They're not a business partner. They're not somebody like there's not really been you're not tight. Let's put it that way, right?
yeah.
You're not in relationship with them, but you know who they are, you've done some things for them, they know who you are, and they reach out and tell you, "Oh, I need you to connect me with this person." Like,
Hmm.
please don't ever do that. I've had that a couple times, and it really, to me, sours the experience because I'm getting to know somebody, and
Mhm.
then they just reach out of the blue, and rather than even, I mean, even if the approach is like, hey, we're doing this right now, and I feel like maybe this person could be interested or could be whatever the case may be. Would you mind making an introduction? Like, that's one approach, but just reaching out and saying, hey, I need to connect with this person. Can you set that up? It's like, I don't know. To me, I keep my connections kind of close to my chest when I started podcasting, when I started really getting to know people and spending time and traveling and getting to know people who were far further along than I was,
Mhm.
um, I wanted to connect people. Like I wanted to help everybody, and I had introduced some people that I later found out really were not of the highest integrity, and it
Mm.
killed me. And so now I'm very conscientious of who I put together with different people. And so that's another thing I've had. And also people who want to get you coffee or want to get you lunch or something. It's like they think, I think a lot of times people think, oh, I want to treat you, I want to take you out. And they don't recognize that the person they want to treat and take out probably has their own plans too, and
Mhm.
doesn't need somebody to take them out. Is
Yeah.
that something you've come across at all?
Yeah, quite a bit, and my thinking is that usually that's a, I want to do something nice reciprocity wise because I want to talk with you, or my least favorite thing for somebody to say is I want to pick your brain, because it sounds gross and it's probably illegal. Um, but the that I do get that a fair amount, and I don't have time, and so it's just it's not, and also while I don't do consulting, most people who I think get asked that, I actually would charge for that, right? And so it's not really fair to me. I approach someone that I don't know always through a paid channel because I feel like I can honor their, like if they're a consultant, then I want to buy an hour of their time. And I do have people that say I want to buy an hour of your time, and I say, well, I don't sell my time like that, um, but tell me what you need, right? So that's a good
Because they're
approach.
already willing. They're coming to you
Yeah.
recognizing that they're not trying to take from you, they want to exchange with you, right?
Right. And in your scenario of what you said about the person that says, I need you to connect me to, number one, the grammar of that, I need you to, well, huh, really? Okay. But I think the way to do that would be they should wait until your relationship with them is the point where you say, is there anything that I can do to help you? And then they say that, but not be so desperate and needy to start with, oh, okay, here's the list of people I know, that could help me, right? That's just not the right side of that social equation.
Yeah. And I think that like it's kind of like with podcast guesting, what I teach, and people will say, "Oh my gosh, how can it," especially podcasters, right? Because we get a lot of the same stuff. And it's just some of the things just seem so like obvious not to do, but so many people do them.
Mhm.
And what I like what I usually tell my colleagues and my clients and everything is that I don't I don't necessarily think that the person is intentionally doing something rude or
Yeah.
bad or whatever. I think really, I mean, and this is a lot I think coming from me as a former correctional officer, but I really think the majority of human beings are good
Hmm.
and they
Agree.
have good intentions.
Yep.
They're not trying to take advantage or be disrespectful or anything like that. And I think this is a really good conversation to have because we don't know what we don't know until it's put in front of us. And most people are never going to tell you, hey, what you just did is considered rude,
Hmm.
right? If you go to another country and some of the customs are maybe different than you're familiar with and used to, you can easily make a faux pas without recognizing that it is a faux pas. And I think that that's kind of the way it is with everything. And so I hope that listeners have gotten a lot of value here about, if nothing else, which I'm sure there's lots, but if nothing else, just kind of how to approach starting, initiating a relationship and that kind of nurturing part in getting to know someone. And I wonder too, do you have any final thoughts or advice to leave our listeners with on this topic?
I think we hit it really well. I guess the only other thing would be if there's someone that you really want to get to know, and and you think can be beneficial to you or your audience or whatever, find out, put the time in to get to know them before you approach them. Before you approach them, you should have an idea of how you might help them. You should be able to have some sort of suggestion, and not a suggestion of how they can run their business better, because that's not really ever welcome, I don't think, unsolicited. I think that you want to be able to approach based on something that they have already articulated out into the world that they're looking for, that you can help. Or maybe they've got a charity and you've got an idea of how you can do something for the charity, or there's so many ways to find out what they actually want or need before you approach. And it really shows that you respect their time and the potential future relationship with them enough to have put the time in to do that.
I love it. So good. So good. So I know we're jumping around here a bit, but I was wondering, with your business lunch, with your podcast,
Mhm.
where are you seeing this going? So you said you've already got 20 interviews recorded, and is this something you're just doing for a while? Is this something that you have a bigger vision for? Like what's going on with the business lunch?
Yeah, it's a good, great question. I want it to be like most things that I do. I would like to do it for a long time. I would like for it to be something that can really help people. And I learn, to me, the ultimate thing is when you can help other people and you're learning in the process. So for me, I learn from my conversations with them, even people I hang out with all the time. When I interview them, I get to find out all these extra things that I just didn't ever know. And that's alone is really cool. So I would do that no matter what. And then I do think people can really benefit from seeing where people came from to how they got where they are, because a lot of people look at the Instagram perfect life of the people that they look up to and think, I could never do that, or they must be different than me. And the truth is that we're all the same, and we all start at nothing, and we get lucky. I think that's probably 60 to 70% of success. And but you do get luckier the more you play the game, and the more connected you get. But watching how each of those successful people built from nothing to get where they are, I think is really good. And so I'd look at it as it's similar to how I built this, which is a podcast that I think is fantastic with Guy Raz. But his focus is, I think, more on how that specific business that's successful got successful. I'm more interested in the person behind the business and their journey. And I think that gives extra color. And I love his. And actually, it was what made me think, this is good. I also, in addition to knowing that, would like to know, how did this person like get to the point where they had all the resources mentally and mindset wise and otherwise to do what they do. So that's my goal for it. And all I want to do is connect with as many people as I can to find out.
Awesome. And so my listeners can just on their favorite app, iTunes or Apple Podcast or Google Podcast or whatever the podcast, any podcast playing app, you can search for Business Lunch with Roland Frasier, and it's sure to come up. And I had another question for you. And
Okay.
lost it. Um, yeah. So, well, we're getting to the end, and I do want to wrap up, and I don't want to open a whole nother bag of worms.
Oh, do it.
Do it. Okay. I feel like I'm like scattered though. We're going all over the place. Okay. Do we have some more time?
It's almost like how a conversation happens, right?
I know, right? Um, yeah, but sometimes I think, man, Nicole, like, how does this and this? Anyways, I think it would be of value. Um, so you have a family.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I do.
you have a family, yes. And you also have your hands in a lot of different things, and you're speaking and you're traveling, I believe, and you do a lot.
Mhm.
Um, how have you navigated and found the sort of
Balance.
happy place? What's that? I don't know, balance, yeah. Or how have you found what works best for your life in terms of your personal life and your professional life? Have you kind of have you found some things that you're willing to share with folks?
Yeah, I think the big thing is I have made a decision that my family is very important to me, and I also make that decision knowing that it means that I will be less successful in the financial entrepreneurial world because I will not be devoting as much time to that as I could. I will not be Steve Jobs or Elon Musk or some of those other people who create brilliant change for the world, but their personal lives can be challenging, right? So I have definite time that I carve out for my family that is inviolable, that whatever emergency is happening, it's going to have to work itself out. And if it means that the world changes and the business goes down, then that was what was meant to be. So that's the one thing. I do not overcommit, although sometimes my family might say that I do. But I feel like I have a responsibility to the business partners I've got, to the customers that our businesses have, and to my family. And I feel like my family comes first. My wife first, my kids second, my business partners third. But that's it. Is I think just being conscious of that. And so I have blocked out birthdays, anniversaries, all those things, so that they don't get forgotten, and we disconnect from business when we're having family time. So it's now the cool thing is that both of my kids are involved in our business, and my wife is who actually named Business Lunch is involved and interested. So we do get to talk about those things, but you just have to carve out time. That's to me, that's the key thing, is that if you need to carve out time for your family on your calendar with appointments like you would do for any business meeting.
Awesome. And then what about for yourself? How do you keep yourself like I'm hoping that you're doing something for yourself outside
Yeah,
of
yeah.
for others.
Yeah, well, travel is a passion of mine, and so I hit 152 countries this year, and so I'm trying to hit all of them, and that's something that I work on and plan and put on my goals list. And we share. The other tip that I was going to say is I share my calendar with both my kids and my wife, so they can see anytime they want to do anything with me. They can schedule, and they see all the things that I have as commitments. And if they put something on the calendar, then it's going to happen. And so that's helpful too, because there's no like long pause to get things to happen. But yeah, for me, it's travel. I write and play music. I've done that for years, so I still do that quite often. And then just working out, and then photography. I'm a pretty passionate photographer, so I have lots of those interests outside of business. But I will tell you, business is one of my favorite hobbies too. I just love it.
That's so awesome. And I read a thing. It's so funny. I read it a long time ago. I heard about it a long time ago, and then it just kind of popped up again. I don't know if you put something on Facebook, or if it was when I was, getting ready for the interview or whatever the case may be. But you've got like I've always known about, well, this was like 15, 20 years ago. But there's always been the folded 20 in Vegas. Like, I don't know if that still works, but back when I used to go to Vegas, that always worked. But you've got some like crazy tips for staying in hotels, like really fancy and nice hotels everywhere. So can you share that? Because I just think that could be a fun and useful thing for my listeners before we go.
Absolutely, yeah. So I don't bribe anybody at the hotels to do this. I legitimately am interested in humans. So when I walk up to the counter, I have conversations with them as humans, not as hotel clerk or whatever. But it starts with planning. So I'll give you the most abbreviated version that I think will be helpful is if you have either a virtuoso level travel agent, and that's a specific thing, or you have an American Express Platinum or higher card, then and you book through that agent or that card online, then you will automatically get upgraded to the next available category of room. So I look on the online and see prices, and so the prices for hotel rooms I noticed were very, very specific. It'd be 229, 229, 239, 249, 279, 299, 599. So I was like, okay, well, if I book, there's only $100 difference between like 229 and 299, but there's a $300 difference to go up to the next level. I'm going to book the room before the big jump because I want my upgrade to be the big jump. So that right off the bat. And then I'll get to the hotel, and very, very frequently, almost always, unless it's super, super sold out, they will give you the upgrade to that room and maybe even a couple other categories higher when you check in. So when I go to the front desk, they're like, oh, we've upgraded you, blah, blah, blah. Or they won't say anything, and I'll say, I'll just talk with them and engage with the person at the front desk, have a conversation. I always look for something to compliment people on. It's not a manipulative strategy. I'm just, if somebody has anything I can say nice about them, I say something nice.
Their day.
Yeah. And then I say, are there any upgrades available? And they'll be like, oh, well, we've already upgraded you 3 categories or whatever. And that's awesome. I'm just wondering if there are any other upgrades that might be available. Or sometimes if they say no, I'll say, are there any paid upgrades that are available? And very frequently they'll go, oh, okay, well, hang on, let me check. And then as they're checking, I'll generally say, what's your favorite room in the hotel? Which is awesome because they get excited about that. They're like, oh, well, I like the such and such suite. It's amazing because blah, blah, blah. And they tell you the story behind it, which is interesting. And I say, what would it look like if I was to get upgraded to that room? And then they'll get kind of excited on board and become your advocate. And then they'll go back and talk to the manager. And gosh, I would say 80% of the time I'll get that upgrade for not a lot of money. It's usually, you'll pay something, but usually it's in the neighborhood of 50 to 80% off of what the upgrade rate would be. And so we end up in presidential suites and emperor suites and czar suites and all these things all over the world all the time that would be $10,000 or $15,000 a night for, actually those are probably, I might be paying in that probably for like a $10,000 or $15,000 a night room between $1,000 and $2,000, which isn't inexpensive. But keep in mind, that's the oh my gosh, top of the hotel, crazy, insane thing. And so it applies to everything, though. Just having the conversation and asking if an upgrade's available, even if you don't go through any of the stuff I talked about. I get people, this is so rewarding, as people message me on Facebook and Insta all the time and say, oh, I just did your strategy at the such and such, and I got upgraded to a suite, and I didn't pay anything. And it's just because you ask, because if the inventory's there and they're not going to use the room and you're a halfway nice person, they're going to give you the upgrade, but they're not if you don't ask.
I am going to ask this year. That's on my, I got to remember, because I always think it's so interesting, but when I know what you're doing, but then it's like, why don't I employ it? I'm asking's always been a challenge. So I'm going to start asking for upgrades.
Perfect. I love it. And let me know how it goes.
I will. So thank you so much. Before we get going, any final words you want to leave my listeners with? And also please let them know how they can continue the conversation with you.
Okay. No, just remember that it is relationships and networking, and truly, as Nicole said earlier, the best thing that you can do for anyone is the best thing you can do for yourself. And that's to try to help them and expect nothing in return. And as far as getting a hold of me, trafficandconversionsummit.com for the event that we talked about. I have a website at rolandfrasier.com. I'm on all the socials, Facebook and LinkedIn and all those fun things. And obviously the Business Lunch podcast, if you get a chance to check that out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.